all. Welcome to this. We're back. Not as many people as we thought we were going to have. Chase isn't going to be here. We're not sure where Chase is. We're hoping he's okay. But Markeem should join us shortly. But that's fine because I have an apology to make before we all get started because we have a ton of shit to talk about. But so this is what happened. I do not. I said that Sean Ross Sapp because I saw a post because I don't follow Sean Ross Sapp. I simply saw a post, misread what the post was. This is what I thought happened. I knew that he had said he was not going to be at the press conference after the Royal Rumble. Of course, after the Vince stuff came out, which we're going to talk about, a lot of people kind of questioned that. I did not see the reason why he was not going to be there. I did not see the reason he wasn't going to be there until probably late Friday, maybe really early Saturday morning, which was a personal reason, which I completely understood. And I thought at the time that I had tweeted, and I guess I didn't, saying pretty much I completely understood why he wasn't going to be there, all of this stuff. But there was one caveat to that. There was another tweet that I had seen, which I completely misread. And what I thought he was saying was that even if he would be able to go, he didn't have the credentials to be able to get into the press conference, which I thought was silly because anybody that knows him, that'd be just like Dave Meltzer asking, they would let him in. All he would have to do is ask. So I kind of called him out on that as well. Basically, I was wrong on all counts. He got upset, rightfully so. But I wanted to apologize. I wanted people to understand what happened. Even when I apologized, I still thought the original thing that I saw about him, but the reason he was saying, the other reason why he said he wouldn't be able to go anyways because of the credentials thing, I thought that was silly. I kind of called him out on that too. That was wrong. I completely misread that. There's one of the Fightful guys reached out, Paul somebody, I think, I don't have the tweet. So or on Twitter, the exchange we had, but he actually reached out, was like, Sean never said that. I went to look for the tweet that I originally saw. That's when I realized I completely misread it. Sean has every right to be pissed off at me. There's no doubt about that. So I just wanted to come on here, apologize again. More people will probably see this than saw the original tweet. So there we go there. Now we can talk about Vince McMahon and all of it's completely, none of you will know this, but I guess if you kind of follow me, because I kept updating like what we were going to talk about. Like originally it was going to be Okada, and then it was going to be like the Royal Rumble, and then it was going to be the Netflix deal, and then it was going to be right, and stuff kept moving, and then we get Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon is not a funny thing. It was just like everything just kept happening in the last 2 weeks. So I'm sure everyone that's watching this knows Vince McMahon resigned because the person that the Wall Street Journal originally kind of just story was about filed a suit because Vince McMahon, in all of his genius, decided to stop paying on her NDA because he thought originally, I guess he thinks that she's the one that contacted the Wall Street Journal. If I remember right, a year and a half ago when all that broke, the talk was it was somebody on the board that had leaked the information to the Wall Street Journal. So he stopped paying her. She filed a suit. The suit is not good for TKO. It is not good for WWE. It only really lists Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis. It lists other people. That's why Brock Lesnar was talked about. He's not in there by name, but the description, he's the only one it could be.
Because and then it's a former UFC champion.
Yeah, it's like he's the only like UFC. I think it says heavyweight champion, right?
UFC heavyweight champion they were trying to resign. Who could that be?
Yeah, it was either, there's only 2 UFC champions that would be there, and I doubt one would, And
the other one's not Dan Severn.
Yes.
Right. It's not Dan Severn.
So anyways, all of that happened. And so he was forced to resign. And then, so I will say that while I was shocked at what was in the lawsuit, I shouldn't say shocked. Yeah, so I was shocked. I wasn't surprised at a lot of the stuff in the lawsuit. I think a lot of us that know Vince McMahon, know the Ring Boy story, know the Snuka story, know the steroid scandal, and you can just keep, really understand what happened with the Montreal Screwjob, understand, the Owen Hart stuff, and you just keep going and going and going and going. I don't think this surprised anybody. I think you just was shocked, kind of thing. So, what would you say
I
to
mean,
that?
I think when you read the details, like they were horrific and horrible. But if you know Vince McMahon and you've watched the product for 20, 30 years as much as we have, the way he behaves on that screen is kind of how he behaves in the boardroom, clearly, especially when he was forcing himself on women on the SmackDown or wherever it may be. He's doing the same thing behind the scenes, and obviously was basically making this woman who's came out with and named herself Giselle Shaw, and she was trying to come forward as well. There are other suits out there for Vince McMahon that we don't know those women, and if they're going to come press forward and actually put the charges on. As Marquine joined us, so I'll add him here.
There's 7 other NDAs. That's the thing. And
yeah,
we knew
there's
that
a lot of
year and a half ago.
NDAs, so I wasn't too surprised, but it's just more the timing of the lawsuit, because this came out on a Thursday when 48 hours before it was TKO announcing this $5 billion deal with WWE going to Netflix starting in 2025 in the US, Canada, Latin America, and the United Kingdom. So that was the thing, and it's just really reprehensible stuff, especially considering they kind of kicked this man out of the board, and then he forced his way back on, and he somehow survived. He proved he has had 9 lives, which we all knew he kind of had. But with the details of this story and him officially, being forced out by TKO, whether there may be some lawsuits coming for TKO or just to avoid any of that pressure, whatever it may be, TKO kind of had to force Vince out. He's now out, and I just don't see him coming back in. But yeah, the details were reprehensible. There's text screenshots in this filing, which is really hard for Vince or any attorney to kind of combat against. And then we'll just wait and see what happens with the suit going forward. And if other suits are pressed, because as you said, Josh, there's like 7 other NDAs.
Okay, I'm gonna reset my mic real quick. But Marquine, tell us. Go.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Again. All I want from this whole fiasco is for people to maintain the same positions that they've had with anyone else that has been accused of. I mean, this is a different ball game because of how deep it goes, because we don't know the extent of how deep this thing actually goes. All we know is Vince, offered a female up. If you read those messages, we know about unnamed UFC champion and former WWE champion Brock Lesnar. But we don't really know how. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. My whole thing is that I just want to know how deep it actually goes before I actually say anything. But I just want, now, can we stop coddling how we cover Vince McMahon? Vince McMahon is a sleazeball. Vince McMahon is a slime ball. Vince McMahon is everything that we have all said for years and years and years. And this is how he needs to be covered now. He needs to be covered like disgraced rich guy, not the man who, made wrestling mainstream, not the man who is responsible for your fandom, all that. No, he is the way people talk about Harvey Weinstein. It's how we should talk about Vince McMahon. The way people talk about Bill Cosby is how we should talk about Vince McMahon. The way people talk about anyone you could think of, you name it, Woody Allen, Brett Ratner, all these people, the way people talk about them is how we should discuss Vince McMahon. And if you don't, I can't respect you. And even if you decide not to, you have to at least acknowledge that this is what's going on, or don't say anything at all about it. You know what I mean? That's just how I feel, man. But I'm waiting until more stuff comes out. I don't want to say everything because again, we don't really know the full extent of all this. So
well, I think the thing is just that this incidents happened also in the boardroom when work was going on and people knew about this and were kind of hiding these details, which is, I think, the more shocking thing about the culture that was going on there. And I've seen a lot of clips posted from the 1992 like Ring Boy scandal about like this kind of stuff was going on in the company, even some 32 years ago, and the culture hasn't changed. Now, granted, most of the clips are from a guy named Murray Hodgson who proved out to be a massive liar, so that hurts the validity of those statements. But it seems as well the culture that was around there at WWE, then WWF, is still kind of there, and people were defending Vince, hiding Vince, and all these stories are starting to come out. And who knew is the big question now. Who knew? Are there going to be more lawsuits of people involved in the company that were working there? And you kind of see,
did they know?
Yeah, what extent did they know? And you've kind of seen even this week, just like the TKO stock is taking a huge hit.
Like, I hope people are ready for a lot of their heroes to not be, you know what I mean? Because who are some of the bigger stars? Like, I don't want to throw out names or anything, but it might be some people that everyone loves that you're going to find out some horrible things about. So
remember that everybody's ready for that. The videos that surfaced at that birthday right after he got thrown out. That's all. I will leave it there. But I think the other, like you guys were kind of talking about, I think, you look at everything as far as like the culture, and the thing that kind of dawned on me, I just kind of remember, 2008 when Dave Meltzer got completely just crucified for pointing out that Peyton Royce got plastic surgery done. Now, he did it in a absolutely he was trying to be, I think, not say certain things, and it came off really bad. And, he deserved to get, he himself has said he shouldn't be defended.
Oh, that's when he said she looked
2018, not 2008.
Right?
Yeah, 2018.
That was when he said she looks better without the implants or something like that.
Yeah, or she didn't need them. He was basically like, but the thing about that is that people completely missed the point, especially like people in like the wrestling media sphere. What he was trying to point out was that there is this culture, and this culture had been there forever, and that maybe, it was time to fix that culture. And it completely got just nobody paid attention to it.
Well, that's because Dave can't talk.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, and we know that. And then, like I said, I'm not trying to defend what Dave said. I'm just trying to say, if people would have been paying attention, if people would have paid attention to the right thing, we would have had this discussion then. And then maybe by the time, you start getting like Triple H at these press like the NXT press conferences that became, before the WWE like regular press conferences, there would have been more of these questions about this. And unfortunately, we didn't get that. And I think that a lot there's I'll talk about this later, but I think that is part of this. There's just so many like levels. And we know, like, if you go online, you can kind of see people have done detective work, kind of figured out like who the unnamed people are. And yeah, I mean, I would say get ready for maybe some shocking things. And I think people really need to take a step back and not just look at like the culture. I've heard a lot of people talk about like the culture there, and they focus on Vince McMahon, and they're not focusing like on other parts of the culture there that have been a problem as well.
I think Ronda Rousey's tweet was
saying
like
Ronda's
Bruce
tweet,
Pritchard just basically the puppet for Vince when Vince was forced out of the company back in,
which a lot of us thought anyways. Like even the people like a lot of us thought, and and unfortunately, the questions that should have been asked, when he first resigned, are just now having like Dave and Sean Ross Sapp, and I'm sure Wade Keller and Mike Johnson are probably the same way, of saying, okay, well, now I'll start asking more questions and finding out who, seeing if I can find out who knew what and who knew what when. Well, where was this a year and a half ago? Especially when, like, and I'm not trying to make Stephanie McMahon a martyr when I say this, but that timeline of her leaving or her resigning, I've heard people say resigning, which she resigned, and what was it, 2 weeks later that hit piece came out, which was like, no, she sucked at her job, and it was she was fired and asked to leave. And and then she ends up coming back. You don't do a hit piece like that if you don't think she's coming back. And I think that people need to like kind of focus on that, because that was all Nick Khan. That was Nick Khan 100% and his people. And people need to focus on that a little bit more. And people need to focus on just everything that happened. And I don't want to make her a martyr, because she went out there when he came back on SmackDown and was like, welcome my dad back and all of that. So I don't want to make her a martyr. But I think that in the bigger picture, you have to start asking those questions, because all of those little things that a lot of people, I think, are glossing over, a lot of that are either aren't remembering or just aren't asking the right questions, right? Like there's a lot of, I would call them journalists that are in the kind of wrestling sphere that remind me when I was, some people know this. I went to the University of Texas. I studied journalism at the University of Texas. I was in the journalism program. Juice can probably talk about this too. People that are in those programs aren't always just going to be journalists. You have people that are wanting to be press reps. You have people that are wanting to, go to PR departments, all of those sorts of things. They remind me of those people, because those are the people that were really bad about not asking questions, or being, not asking questions, not being inquisitive. They would just take the information they were given, and they wouldn't try to look past the information they were given and be like, okay, well, here's this
context to the
context of everything, and trying to like put things together. And like I said before Marquine came in, we have when it comes to Vince McMahon, you have, going all the way back to the 80s, these scandals that he ended up surviving. I didn't even bring up Rhea Chatterman. There's that too.
That is the one I've literally been watching back, and I'm like, I watched the Geraldo show she was on with a bunch of other women, and it's like she's the only one that has seems like has a valid case, didn't speak up. Everyone's like, well, why didn't you speak up? Granted, this is 1992, so 32 years ago, but she has a valid case, and because it's wrestling, I don't think the media took it as serious as it was, because it's if David Stern or Paul Tagliabue had done something like this, massive news story.
We hear about this.
Yeah, you hear about it forever, right? Exactly. But because it's professional wrestling, and wrestling back then, 32 is a comic book character, like comic books, basically. It's not taken as serious. But now you look at the coverage of this story. It's leading certain news broadcasts, whether, one of them I know was NBC, which is also a partner of WWE, which is kind of crazy. It was a lead story here in Canada on the CBC, the national news.
Dave was on there, right?
Yeah, Dave was on there. Yeah. John Pollock's done some hits for CTV, which is another big news outlet here. This is a massive story that we still don't even know the full ramifications falling out, because it's not even been a week yet. But on your point on Stephanie too, she's on that committee that did the independent investigation to bring Vince back, and they found no wrongdoing. Well, clearly there was wrongdoing.
Or well, I should say this. They apparently so Nick Khan, Stephanie, Triple H, and whoever the CFO was. Apparently they weren't on that committee. It was the other independent board members that were on that committee. Some of them quit while that investigation was going on. Not even before Vince forced them out. But so I think that should be noted. But I think the other thing about that is that even whatever they found, it seems like a sham anyways. One of the that this woman says, now WWE has come out, and this is one thing they really disputed, was she says she was never contacted. They say no, we contacted and never heard back. So whatever that is. But even so, there's definitely more here, and she says people knew about it. People knew about what was going on, and Dave Meltzer said something that I was like, that I think the light bulb has finally gone off on Dave's head, because Dave has been, I would say, the big four in the wrestling media. I think the original story broke. Everything happened, and they just dropped it, and they didn't just continue going after it. And it bugged me as much as all the press conferences and people not asking questions, them not just finding out what was going on. And I think Monday, Dave did a show, and he talked about the fact that he was talking about somebody that never even worked in WWE. And they were like, Dave, you're being naive. This person said basically that I knew all of this. I would imagine it's probably more like I knew things like this, so none of this like shocked me as much as it did the rest of you. And I think that says a lot. It was somebody that, you know, was in the wrestling business, had friends that worked in WWE, especially the high level. And I think that's a big, that says a lot. And so apparently they're all on board now and they're all asking questions. But again, you know, it would have been nice if a year and a half ago, this had been going on. So I think top to bottom, you have all of that. You know, now, you know, people are asking about Errol Emanuel and what he knew, you know, which, you know, to me, that does fall back on those board members, because what did they tell him? You know, and people keep pointing at that the SEC thing where they were like, yeah, Vince McMahon is a liability. And people are like, so they must have known something was coming. I don't know if it was that or if it was just like, hey, there's 7 other NDAs and one of these is worth $7.5 million from 2014 or whatever it was. So if any of these women step forward, he's a liability. I wonder how much of that it is and not just that they knew something was coming, you know?
Well, you could kind of tell, like, once, you know, Endeavor bought the company, they kind of were just distancing themselves from Vince anyway. Right. Like, he was kind of put in the back, didn't really say much. Like, we just saw him on Tuesday at the New York Stock Exchange after the Netflix deal, and they named, you know, The Rock to the board of directors there. That's the last time we saw Vince,
which no one's even talking about, because
they're trying right now. I saw like Endeavor. That is the big story. They're trying to, oh, we got The Rock. We got The Rock, and it got his name. It's amazing, isn't it? And I'm like, there is a bigger story. There is a lot of questions still going on.
There was a bigger story when they announced it, because you had the Netflix deal, and then, but we'll get into that too. But yeah, I mean, that was, it's crazy to me that we come to the, but you know, hopefully everyone has kind of learned now. It looks like he's gone. He's not coming back. He can't force his way back.
There's no way he can come back.
Yeah, there's no way, unless something really crazy happens. What do you think? Because of course, you know, the Wall Street Journal named Brock. You think even if they because this is going to get settled, if it gets settled, do you think then they bring back Brock, or is Brock just done?
Nah.
I think Brock is done.
I don't think you bring back Brock.
I think Brock is done, but it's wrestling, right? Never say never.
I know, that's the thing.
As time moves on, people will forget about this.
Yeah, I thought I'd never see
generation of fans,
again, so I guess,
and you can bring Brock in for something like down the line, because apparently they were supposed to bring him in at the Royal Rumble, but obviously you could not bring that man on television with his, you know, name basically being thrown in there as being, you know, the former UFC heavyweight champion who was involved.
Then my camera comes unplugged. I'm sorry, hold on.
You're fine. We can hear you.
So yeah, like that's the thing. And as well, I think one of the things for me is like Slim Jim was like, we're out. But then once Vince was gone, they're like, we're back in.
We're back.
So
and then they featured Slim Jim. That was like, I haven't watched the WWE pay-per-view in a long time. But that seemed like we're sorry. So we're gonna like
Yeah, they're featuring a lot of more sponsorship, obviously, which is, I know, something that Nick Khan talked about. But like that's the one sponsor. So, but I think my biggest takeaway was a lot of the media, even especially the wrestling media, was like, "Oh, Vince is gone; it's solved now." I'm like, "No, it's not.
We're still where we were." I know. We'll get to that. We'll get to
that Ryan Satin tweet was embarrassing.
Oh, well, I mean, it's Ryan Satin.
I understand that, but still, like, that is an embarrassing tweet.
It's Ryan Satin. I mean, I saw other stuff that was just as, what I would say was not as bad as that, but you had people, you know, saying stuff like, "Oh, I'm glad this is over. Now we can, you know, concentrate on the Royal Rumble." And I'm like, this is not over. This is not over.
Just the beginning.
I said, and these were people that said they read the suit. I'm like, if you read the suit, I didn't read all of it. I just, you know, the highlights of it. But even if the people that read it were like, there are people in this company that knew something more than, and that's where a lot of this, like the culture stuff came from.
I mean, if those people had read the suit, good on them. Triple H hadn't even read the suit apparently on Saturday.
Like, let me ask you this, because we both went to the school for the same thing. If Cedar was in here, I'd ask him too. There's decorum when you're at a press conference. But when he said that he hadn't read it,
That's awful.
I so wanted, because now, he's flat out lying. I so wanted someone just to yell out, "You might want to, because it looks like you're in the suit."
Yeah. But even like if he wasn't in the suit, like, you're a high up executive at this company. How have you not read this? Or even read an article about it or something? And just to say, I want to focus on the positives. Like, oh man, like that's just.
I guess we should get into that disaster on his part about the presser.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my camera, y'all, but can y'all
it's
hear
fine.
me?
We don't have to have a camera as long as we can hear you.
Cool.
Because a lot of people have said that, they feel like maybe the UFC side, the TKO side, set him up, sent him out there to fail. That's possible. I also think that they're used to dealing with Dana, because most of these people are probably UFC people. So they're used to, Dana. And for all of Dana's faults, you could have thrown Dana out there and he would have done 1,000 times.
Dana would have, but Dana's a master at that. Dana can spin a negative and make it into a positive. Right. Like we just saw it at the press conference at UFC 297, 2 weekends ago from that point. So that's Dana being a master. And Triple H, well, not. Like, just
man, why didn't anybody prep him? It was so bad, bro.
But well, that's what I'm saying.
Why didn't anybody prep him? Or if he's not going to say anything, just like let TKO release a statement and say refer to the statement.
Right.
That's at least something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people can still ask questions after, because that, if you watch any real press conferences, that happens all the time. Here's my statement, and then people ask this, still ask the questions, because you got to ask the questions. But because here's and I'm not trying to defend Tony Khan when I say this, because he did his press conference.
Do you have to ask the questions, Josh?
We're gonna get into that too. We're gonna get into that too. And he got asked about Jericho while he had the hat and the sunglasses on, and did not have the wherewithal to take them off, which is what he should have done, because his answer wasn't bad. It was just the visual of him still having like crap on. And that was still bad. And Triple H made that look like night and day difference.
I'm going to say this comment here from G Nation: Cody Rhodes' response is more credible than the false prophet. Like, facts. Yes. Like, Cody handled that question very well that Nick Hausman asked him at the press conference.
And props to Nick Hausman, who we ripped.
Yep.
Yeah, we came on here and tore him up. So he did good though.
Hausman asked a legit question. Brandon
Thurston and it was a question I don't think people had thought of either. That's the other.
It was a great question as well for Cody too, being in a former executive at AEW and stuff of that.
Because that's not even, because I will say this. I've been telling people that I think Cody. There's two people that I think were talent that you should have asked questions with. One is Paul Heyman, but they're not going to put Paul Heyman up there for various reasons, even though he probably would have done better than Triple H did. I have no doubt about that. But Cody was the other one. And the reason why I say that is because if you don't know, Cody was personally recruited by Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think, even though I don't think anything happened, I don't think he did what he did with Brock, but I think that if he
I certainly hope not.
Well, I would be beyond shocked.
I think we're really speculating now.
yeah, we're really speculating. But I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that I think because of that, because he was personally, recruited by Vince McMahon, I think he was open to some questions. And I thought Hausman did a really good job. Seahawk, who we came on here and we kind of ripped as well, at least he asked the question. I'm not going to say it was a great question, but at least he asked almost the exact same question that Tony Khan got asked. One of the three questions that Tony Khan got asked was one of those. And I think that's perfectly good and perfectly fine. You had, of course, Brandon Thurston, but everybody knew if he got the mic, he was going to ask. And then Alba, who I think everybody, I don't have to agree with like how he views pro wrestling, but he usually does ask very good questions, and he does know the stuff to ask. So props to them. The problem, of course, is that they were not the only ones to ask questions.
Oh my God. We had a question to Triple H during the biggest scandal this company's had since Chris Benoit in 2007. Is this the best generation of wrestling? What are you doing? Like, you're at this thing.
What now?
Why are you asking this question now? Like, what?
And here's the thing: John Alba was like, he tweeted out before the press conference that he was that they were trying to get everyone together so that they could have a game plan so that to address this.
Yes.
You have to. I put out a tweet, and I'm not trying to like, but I put out a tweet, I think the day on Friday, when a lot of the media people were getting kind of like butthurt because they were like, "Hey, why are you throwing me under the bus on this? I have no," and I'm like, "No, you don't understand. It's been a year and a half. Nobody's asked these questions. Everybody right now is fair game until we get past this, and you have to understand that. You have to read the room, and you have these.
Fucking hate.
You also have
that
Triple H availability.
The people
and how often
Right.
do you get Triple H's availability in a platform like this where
Right.
you have to ask him a question?
You
You're
have
not
to be an
going to see
adult.
him.
You have to be an adult in the room.
You're
And
not
if you're
gonna
not
get
going to be an adult, don't raise your hand and don't take the mic.
Yeah, the people outside of this thing that we love, they're the ones that have been doing all the work. They're the ones that have been digging in all this other stuff. And the motherfuckers that actually cover this and live and die by it, it's almost like we have a project to do and it's due the next day. And that's how they're playing catch up when the motherfuckers outside of our bubble are the ones that have done all the work. That's why I'm not giving any of them flowers, minus maybe Brandon Thurston, but like the rest of them, no, because it's been years. It's been 2 years now. Why are we? Man, I'm not doing this right now, but go ahead.
I thought Brandon Thurston, though, had a great tweet post the press conference about the state of the wrestling media. It's you have to ask questions about this. Like, I understand, we're all media here and whatever, but we can't be asking questions that have nothing to do with a major topic of this magnitude right now.
And I'll say this, the lady that asked the Netflix question, is that a question you should have maybe asked? No. But if you're going to ask a Netflix question, you don't ask a softball Netflix question, especially since by then we were, 2 days from the Netflix out. And people had already started being like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the great, wonderful deal we were told it was. And if you wanted to go, you know what, I don't want to ask about this, but the Netflix thing is a big story because it is. And there are questions about this deal because as it looks like there's a lot of like sketchy stuff about this deal that maybe not that it's a bad deal, but it's maybe not this wonderful deal that they were saying. I can understand that. But it wasn't even that. It was a softball. Hey, tell us this great, wonderful thing about the Netflix deal. And you can't do that.
It was trying to fill the narrative that Triple H eventually would say, we're trying to focus on the positives.
Right.
Like, you're just trying to highlight, hey, we got this Netflix deal.
And to further that point, you had people come to these people's defense. And I understand that they were probably getting, absolutely like not just criticized, but beyond that, because it's the internet. But my thing to that is, and I know people don't think this is fair, but this is the way it is. If you're going to have a social media presence, you have to keep in the back of your mind at any point in time, the absolute worst people from the internet can come after you, and you better be able to handle that. And if not, then I don't know what to tell you, because unfortunately that's how the internet is. That's the reality of it, and you need to understand that. But to the people that came to their defense and all of this thing, and I felt like this for a while now. If you're going to come to their defense, the first thing you need to say is, you know what? I am sorry that we as wrestling media have failed as a group and you were put in that position. That should be the first thing, because that is what has happened. We've gone a year and a half without any of these questions, without any of this stuff that by now, like if you had been asking these questions, a lot of these questions you'd be asking about Vince McMahon, but a lot of this other stuff you would have Triple H on record on some of this stuff, which meant that now you have what he has said on record, on public record, and then what's in this lawsuit, and they don't match up. So now the story's even more of a thing, but we didn't get that. To your point about to Markeem's point about like people not following up on this, I think that's a big issue to me, because I think part of it is, we heard the stories that when the first allegations came out and he resigned and came back, that there was this Real Sports piece that was being worked on because people were being interviewed for it. So we know it was being worked on, and then nothing ever came of it. I think you had, Dave, Sean, Mike Johnson, Wade Keller. I think they probably thought, hey, we'll hold off because it looks like these people are going to go, including the Wall Street Journal, maybe do follow up, and we'll let them take the ball because that would be better in the long run. by the time you were like 3 months out and it looked like that wasn't going to happen, you kind of needed to pick up the ball yourself and run with it. And none of them did that. And I think I think that's a criticism for all of them. I think everybody, I think even us to a degree, deserve some criticism, because let's be honest, if we were doing this, if we just said, you know what, we're going to do this every month 10 years ago, we would have, there's no doubt, we would have a big enough
we
following.
would be these fools, man. I keep saying that. Like,
right? I mean, and I don't think that's tooting our own horn. I think that anyone that has followed any of us, and you know, it's a bigger group than I think people even think, because there's probably like 15 of us when you get us all together. You know, we would have people at these pay-per-views. There's no doubt in my mind. There's enough of us. We all live in at different parts of the country, in some cases different parts of the world, that we would have people at these events. I have more faith in Jim, and I'm not trying to throw Jim under the bus. I have more faith in Jim to ask at least a question about Vince McMahon and all of this stuff. Now, it might not be the best worded question. It might not be, you know,
Jim will ask though. Jim
will ask. And, you know, so I do feel kind of like, not that we're responsible, but I think to myself, you know, if we had done this, where would we, and we would be this. So I can without a question, because I know I would be like this. I know Juice would be like this. I know if Eric was still around, he would be all like, no, if somebody's going to go, they got to ask a question. If not, then what are we doing here? And not just him, you know, like I said, Sean Sedor, who's been, I mean, for those people that don't know, Sean Sedor has been in like our orbit for decades in a lot of ways. I don't even want to think how, Sean. I don't even want to know how young he was when he was like following us. He would probably be part of this little group of ours too. And there's enough people that understand how the media works and understand how it should work and all of that thing, that I think we would hold ourselves to that standard. And the fact that for so long now we played this game of, you know, we're not going to hold ourselves to those standards. And the thing that people need to understand about this, and Juice will understand this, even if we're this little pro wrestling, like if you saw the Bill Simmons interview that he did with Larry David, and Larry David's comments on pro wrestling, right?
So I just listened to that. Yeah.
What?
I just listened to that today.
Yeah. If you listen to that, like that gets you in the context of like how wrestling is kind of viewed. Like I hate talking like the type of like the really in-depth pro wrestling stuff that we talk about to people outside, because they look at you like you don't just have two heads, you got like 3 or 4 heads, because they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? So there is that. And I think that if you had enough people asking these questions, even if the rest of like the outside media was ignoring it, there's enough of those people at these press conferences too that they would probably start asking questions of, wait a minute, why do you guys keep asking these questions about this stuff? What is it that we don't understand? And I'm going to bring this something that I was going to bring this up before and I forgot. Something that David Bixenspan told me. And I'm going to say this, and people can think of what they want. This would be the time to follow David Bixenspan right now. Now, later when he starts being himself, you can unfollow him. But right now, this would be the time to follow him, because he's the best at this. What we're dealing with right now, he is, no question, the best at. He brought up to me something I did not know. I guess during, not even like speaking out, where I'm talking about Me Too, when a lot of us were like, okay, when's the shoe going to fall? And when are people going to start coming after Vince? Because we'd all heard the rumors. We knew that at the very least you had casting couch stuff going on in WWE. At the very least. And he was like, no, there were like 7 women that went to the New York Times. They were being interviewed and they ended up backing off because the guy they were talking to didn't understand pro wrestling, and they knew that the guy didn't get it. And so it wasn't going to be to their benefit. And the Wall Street, you know, and the New York Times weren't reaching out to like the wrestling people to try to bring in to like educate themselves to understand.
Crazy. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Because I mean, let's face it, this is a weird business. And if you don't understand kind of how it works, because I mean, it's a carny business, and it's a carny business in absolutely horrible ways, which we found out this week. And it's and it's a carny business in like in some good ways too, which are like endearing. You know, you've got both of those, and if you don't understand it, you're not gonna get like you're not really gonna understand how it works, and you kind of do need to do that. So yeah, I didn't know that either. I thought that was
But
amazing.
I think this story coming out now is better than the Me Too movement because the wrestling side of it would have just kind of pushed this so far below.
Oh yeah,
It would have been forgotten. Like
right.
Harvey Weinstein, obviously, you know, massive Hollywood executive. Him being the forefront is huge because, you know,
Right.
people watch movies. People know these actors and actresses, more so obviously actresses,
Yeah.
and they feel like they know them more than, hey, wrestling. That's stupid, basically, is how the rest of the world looks at this bubble. But now with how this story broke 48 hours after a massive deal for that company, I think is something to spread some light on what's going on in this company, what's going on in this business. I mean, I think the timing right now is right, as sad as how long as it's taken, but I think the timing here is key for some serious work and look to go into this, and that this company has now been sold and has actual business people that have to deal with it. It can't just be Vince McMahon.
Right.
So I think that's a big
and
factor.
his little cronies.
That's a really good point.
And his little right. I think so too. I think that it's sad. It's sad all the way around. I think, like, you know, I said this the last time we did this, that I thought that, you know, everyone had kind of failed the wrestling business when it came to, you know, because we were just talking about like the presser, and none of this had even come out, that you still had this, and we, you know, and that we had, because we could go forward, because really, you know, in pro wrestling you had speaking out until Vince McMahon is like gone and all of that within WWE is fixed. That's not done. You know, I mean, you can't just be, oh, well, it cleaned up it kind of cleaned up the indies and maybe affected ROH and TNA, but for it not to, you know, we said this last time, you know, it's got to change, you know, anything that might be wrong in AEW, and it got to change everything that's wrong with WWE. And until then, you've not fulfilled that promise of what speaking out would have been. So that's how I look at it.
Just seeing here, Eric Hawkins puts in, the hardest part, I think, about asking any of these questions is you're not going to get an answer. So it's almost mute to do so. Can't really push someone representing a publicly traded company. Sure, you're probably not going to get an answer, but you still have to ask. You're there.
Because even a non-answer is an answer.
Is an answer, yeah.
Like people don't think that, but, or even if they give like if they go, well, I'm not going to comment, that's truly like not an answer. You usually don't get that though. You usually get some convoluted answer that's a non-answer, but then you're like, okay, you can dissect what they didn't say, and that helps. And that's like, yeah. So that's why you have to ask the answer. Even if you don't get an answer, that's still an answer, and it allows you to add things as things go along. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, these press conferences, it's basically you get one question. There's no time for follow-ups as well. Right. So you have to ask a question of serious merit at these things, because we've talked about how dumb these are.
And it also helps your bottom lines, like your write-ups. You could say, we asked blank question, and the response was, yeah. So it actually helps your platform too. You got to ask.
Yeah, you got to ask if you're there, and especially for the media in this massive story. Like, could you imagine being at a press conference like Roger Goodell be at in like a week or so at the Super Bowl, and he had a scandal like this, or someone representing him, and they didn't ask the question, and they were like, you know, the NFL, great TV deals.
You would have, that would be the most hostile freaking.
Man, like, Patrick Mahomes just won another title. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. Or and pretty much anybody watching this, except for probably a few people, and maybe people have seen it, but there's that moment, and I can't remember. It was an ABC reporter. He was an anchor, and then he went to the press corps when the Bill Clinton scandal broke, and he's the one that asked the question, in which Bill Clinton was basically pounding on the table saying, "I did not have sexual relations with that."
The famous clip that you
the famous clip. You need that moment. Like, you have to realize that, yeah, this is a little silly like thing, pro wrestling, but there's times in which, especially once they got sold, okay, now we're in true adult, like, serious question. type thing, which that adds, and I know Juice is gonna get mad for me this when I say this, but once the company got sold, Ariel Hawani's kind of view on pro wrestling needed to change, because now they are the sister promotion of UFC, and you can't play this little game of, well, I don't cover pro wrestling. Well, you interview people in pro wrestling. Whatever happens with WWE is going to affect UFC in some way. So maybe, you can't have this little hands-off approach anymore. That's all I'll say about that.
Ariel's banned by UFC basically.
Yes,
right?
but I'm just saying that
he's covering the sport from I know what you're saying, and there's some validity to that, sure, but I mean his mindset's totally different, and he was doing stuff for a broadcast partner more so.
Right. Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the way
you're just saying the perception from people
like
Ariel.
Like he did that him and Pollock did that podcast yesterday. And he basically said that he still views, pro wrestling. I don't really cover pro wrestling. And I'm like, no, they're now the sister. They're now like this with UFC. You can't have that mentality anymore. Like I don't agree with what he was saying before, but you can't do that. You can't say that now. He said some other stuff, and I won't go into all that. But I would say
I think he's the least of the worries right now.
Yeah, it's the least of the worries right now. But I don't know. We have anything else we want to talk about as far as like the press conference and?
I thought Cody was fantastic. Obviously, as we talked about, he was a star, and why you want to probably keep him around for a long time as a public face of this company, where he just exudes that charisma that his dad always had, and he just shows his maturity from being an executive in another promotion in AEW before, and how he probably, when he wants to hang up the boots, would be an asset to this company right now. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there's still more details that are coming out. They're horrific details that we know. And this is a story that I think will just get bigger as it goes, because we went from on Thursday finding out Vince had these allegations come up, that the lawsuit was pressed, and he's gone by Saturday. Or was it Saturday or Friday? I think during SmackDown.
It was Friday.
It was Friday during SmackDown when he was announced that he had left the company. So, I mean, that Bill Simmons, Vince McMahon documentary is like, needs another edit. Yeah. It's a full edit. Like, that is going to be an interesting documentary to come out there, because that name is now very toxic, and that's now going to be a broadcast partner for you in 1 year.
Right. And I think I was going to say something else soon. I can't remember what I was saying. When it came to, just because we're talking about this, does it annoy you as much as it does me that you had people pretty quickly be like, oh, this is just a Vince thing, and let's not talk about like Triple H or Nick Khan specifically, and kind of like protect them.
I got tired of hearing they didn't have anything to do with it. I got tired of hearing that, bro. I read that so much, man.
Well, if you think that, then you did not read the suit. I'm just gonna say that. If you think that,
exactly.
But, like, I will say, I don't know about Nick Khan, how much
you put Triple H in a hard spot. I got tired of reading that too.
That the man that had a terrible press conference is definitely somehow involved in this at some point, potentially, because he's been a higher up at this company for, I'd say, 15 years now at this point.
I mean, and it's not just this, it's think about it. The Build-A-Mott stuff, bro. Right?
The Build-A-Mott stuff,
which if you know about that was pretty much, he had to get rid of him, because he had kind of protected him for a while and then had to get rid of him. Then you had the Velveteen
history too, going to Deep South as well.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have the Velveteen, how he handled the whole Velveteen Dream thing, which was horrible. And then you add Riddle now, which, I mean, and how that was horribly handled. And there's a pattern there too. And people need to, like, it's not like Vince McMahon pattern, but you have to kind of, and that doesn't even get into like the stuff when he was still like wrestler, because you could bring up, I won't bring up some stuff, but you could bring up Montreal for sure, because even he admits that was his idea. And
he's very proud of that idea. I'll tell you that.
And he's very proud of it too. Yeah. And you can go back that far and just see everything that happened, and it's kind of crazy. And it's kind of, I'm like, why are you like? I get why people want to protect him, but at the same time, you have to kind of take a step back and go, okay, even with him, there's a there's a pattern, and so I think that you have to kind of go, okay, I don't think it's unreasonable to say are his days numbered? Is he the next one to fall?
I would think he would definitely be a name that has a very severe chance of falling, because I don't see Nick Khan going anywhere. If he has something to do with it, sure. I don't know how much Nick Khan has to be involved with this, because he's only been with the company 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And I think Endeavor sees him as such an asset for this company with the connections he has in the entertainment field to get them, bigger distribution, bigger sponsorship. I think Nick Khan's job is safe.
Due to that, they find out that he somehow knew.
Yeah,
we'll say that.
If he knew for sure,
or at the very least, they go, okay, we'll employ you, but you can't be on the board.
Yeah, or a suspension from the company or
Right.
something of that nature.
Right.
But I mean, Triple H has been here, as we said, like 15 years. He's got a deep history of this. He knows the wrestling business too. So he's someone that I can see them maybe putting very accountable. And I know a lot of fans or people that follow the product are like, no, not him, because he's making their product much better. But this is once again one of those things where you have to put your fandom card and your hat away and look at this from a serious side, because a woman's life was literally ruined because of Vince McMahon, and who knew what happened. I mean, the charges
and that's
are not
just the only woman we know about. So that's
we
and the thing is, even if you want to say that, okay, everything is alleged, those text messages
are damaging.
Yes,
there's screenshots in there.
Crazy, bro.
Like screenshots and just awful stuff. But it's more so, I think, just the naming of this. Like, sure, sexual assault's one thing. Sexual trafficking, that is a damning charge to anyone, let alone the most powerful man in professional wrestling.
Like, I don't think people understand like what all sexual trafficking means.
Yes, they were passing her around.
Yeah, but they were passing her around, because people hear that and they're like, "What are you?
They
talking
they
like,
think like the movies, like where smuggling
like,
people in the
what?
country.
And it's like,
So,
yeah. I mean,
but I mean, it's like the amount of people too that this woman was to be sent. Like, she was given jobs by Vince McMahon just so she could be there. Like, that's the thing in the suit. She was given just a job title there, then moved over to talent relations to work with John Laurinaitis, just so he could be beside him. And then those texts are so damaging. Oh man, just horrific.
And I didn't even bring up this. You have the Massaro stuff, which now looks way different.
Yeah,
as well. So I mean, it's just all bad. And I think if hopefully people like start looking into it, being a little bit more, like you said, their fandom going back. Like I said, I mean, and we're fans too, but we all came on here and we were like, with like Chris Jericho, if any of that's true, then we all said, maybe even Tony Khan has to go. I mean, we all said that. So it's not like we're being this or that. Which,
by the way, I want to make a point. AW putting Chris Jericho still on television now, insane. Like, in the midst of this, what's going on with Vince McMahon? How are you putting?
But you don't have an allegation. You have Hausman being.
But you can put out a statement saying we're conducting an investigation or something.
But what
like that.
On what? You don't even have an investigation to do. I mean, and to be fair, and we gave Hausman his props. Part of that's on him because of the way he handled it. If he had handled it differently, then
okay. My problem with Hausman is him just coming out saying, "I don't like Chris Jericho," where it looks like you just have an agenda already. Like that. Like, you can come out and say, you've heard some rumblings, but say, I don't like Chris Jericho, just makes it seem like you're putting a smear campaign together.
And it's a serious thing. But my thing is until you get like somebody actually saying something, and we talked about this last time about all the implications that could be, but we should probably talk about this Netflix.
Like, it's not like with Vince where like there's like allegations and screenshots and messages and stuff. It's just Hausman saying, "Well, I heard some stuff."
I heard some stuff, and then you had an emoji, and then that's pretty much all we have. But anyways, we should talk about this Netflix deal.
Which, by the way, right now it just feels like so minimal to talk
Oh,
about.
I know. It's just
like
everything else.
Everything's like we're gonna talk about, Netflix, which is an amazing deal for this company. An amazing
is it? Is it?
It's an amazing deal to me in the sense of in like a year, potentially, when like they're advertising a show, the world is watching it on one system, basically.
True. That is true.
That's an amazing win for them. I mean, what this deal can be, I think, is amazing if they get, renewed for another 10 years. It leads to a potential 20-plus year deal. That's an amazing deal. But there's a lot to kind of figure out. Yeah, and there's a lot to figure out. It's like, Netflix trying live.
I'll give, like, Jimmy Van from Fightful. So when the story first broke, a lot of people were even posting, like, hey, we'll wait for, Brandon Thurston to go through this, and then we'll see what he says. And Jimmy Van, I think even before Thurston even went through it, they may have been on shows at the same time. Just said, he goes, I looked at this, and it goes, not that it's a bad deal, and I agree, but it's not the deal they're saying, because it looks like a lot of this stuff is like a athlete's contract where it's all back ended. You might not even see that money. You got the 5-year thing. A lot of the control is in Netflix's deal, and we don't know what the difference is between what they were getting paid for these international deals before and what really they're getting paid now, because they just lumped it all into one thing. I'm imagining, because the TKO press conference is next week. Is that next week?
I'm not sure. I wasn't even aware of that, actually.
Yeah, it's the quarter.
The quarter. Oh, that'll be a very interesting call. That'll be a very interesting call.
Yeah, but I would imagine it'll come up there. The people will start asking, like, hey, how much is this really? Like, how much were they getting before? How much are they getting? We don't even know if this does or does not include right now. Like, once the India deal comes up, does this just funnel right into, and they don't get any extra money for the India deal? Same thing with the Saudi and the Middle East and Northern African deal. Like, there's a lot of this like stuff about this that we don't know, and until we know this, you don't know how really good it is. And just from a fan's perspective, looking at this and not trying to like get old, because none of us are business people, I do wonder how it's going to affect them, in the sense that I know people keep looking at like the NFL playoffs and how much what they were streaming. The NFL playoffs are a little different than Raw. That's going to be every week. And
and that was one game.
Yeah, and that was one game. And it was one game. It was a game that went viral because of how freaking cold it was, and and Taylor Swift and everything else. But normally when you go to like a streaming service, what they've seen is like a 40% drop off on like live viewing. So I wonder like how that affects WWE down the line, because you've got to think it might in some, and like, is the show going to be 3 hours? We don't even know if we don't
know the show's on Monday anymore.
We don't even know if Monday. We don't know if SmackDown's going to be, where SmackDown's going to be. We don't know any of that. And, so which plays like, it's just this big toss up thing, because depending on like where those shows wind up could be, Tony Khan could move his shows too. So it's all sorts of weird. We don't know what's going on.
Hey, have they decided how they're going to fill the gap at the end of the contract? Like,
no, they do not. They have not. We know USA will not air Raw for like 4 months, or believe it will be.
Yeah, so like
they still have to figure that out.
So is it just like it's going to go to Peacock? Is it just going to get like And
well, I mean, I think the thing for me with this deal is like, at least in the United States, like WWE will still have a presence on cable or television. Like NXT's on CW, and then Raw, SmackDown's on USA. In Canada, starting January 1st, 2025, everything's on Netflix. Like, and in the UK and in Latin, everything is on Netflix. So a presence that has been on TV in this country for generations is no longer going to be on there. And how are you going to find a way to get new fans?
Right, because you're not going to have that flip. You're not going to have that flipping from back and forth, unless you just even if you believe that you can get new fans through clips on social media,
Well, even just like, because the deal right now is with a media company called Rogers, and they have multiple television networks, and they put, WWE talent on there. If there's like a show in Toronto, for example, they're on morning shows or whatever. Like, you're not going to have that anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, that's how you get some new fans, or a son and a mom can watch some clips together. Like, you're not going to have that. Everything is on Netflix, and we'll see how this works out. Though I think Netflix picking WWE as the partner to start like seriously going into live sports.
Oh, I think that
is the right partner
right.
to go with. They proved 10 years ago with the network where we were like, oh, this WrestleMania is going to be so glitchy and whatever, and it streamed perfectly, and they proved that there's a model for this to work. I think this is the right partner for them to have.
It's Raw. It's not like a true sporting event where if something does go wrong, you can put it back up in an hour or whatever, and people can watch it then. But I think that'll be very. I did find it interesting that Dave pointed out that none of these streaming services actually want ratings or the real viewership numbers from Nielsen to come out. I thought that was kind of,
which is the thing. I think for WWE is like, great. We don't have to hear about the quarter hours, whatever did this, or whatever. I think they're like, fantastic. This is amazing news.
Well, everyone was like, oh, we're not going to have like ratings discourse, and I'm like, oh no, because here's the thing: NXT is going to CW, which means there's a possibility that could be the most viewed show in pro wrestling.
Very good chance.
It's a very good chance that could be the most viewed because
that's
right?
over the air. That's a main
and
number 5.
We're gonna get that discourse of, oh, look how many, and it's like, yeah, but it's you can't look at it that way. You've got to look at like how many homes they're in and what like WoW gets like, I think right now WoW gets more viewership than anybody but sometimes I think it's like when there'll be Collision this week. But or last week. But they get that much viewership usually, and who the fuck talks about WoW? Nobody does. I mean, it's like,
I didn't know it was still on.
Yeah,
it's on Vice.
It's on. It's all syndicated.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Okay. It's all syndicated. So like it's like it's like ROH used to be, where they would get good numbers, but it's from all over, and it's weird time spots and all of that stuff.
I think the WoW syndication deal is better than what ROH was, where
you're
on multiple different stations, not just like Sinclair only.
Yes, right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. I was wondering how you think. Yeah, because we're getting the TKO. It's either next week or the week after. I can't remember what the date is for the TKO.
I think it is. It has to be pretty soon, right?
Yeah. It's. I knew it was like it's either the first or second week of February. So
it has to be pretty soon. Yeah, because we're definitely way past the end of the quarter 4 of 2023.
Right, because people were like, oh, and they were like, well, we're going to wait a little bit because we're still trying to figure everything out. So it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is, I guess, would be the proper thing. So where are we? I guess we should talk about this because you didn't watch the Royal Rumble, right?
Who?
Martine.
No, I saw the world title match, and my girlfriend was like, cut this off. I don't want to. I didn't see it.
Okay.
I know who won. I saw the highlights and stuff. Like I saw Jade. I saw Jordan Grace. I saw the Naomi thing, which was cool. I saw the end of the men's one, and that's about it.
This was a nothing pay-per-view. Is what it felt like. As somebody that hasn't watched in like forever, this felt like such a nothing pay-per-view. And I think WWE really needs to stop when it comes to the Royal Rumble. They have to stop relying on the surprise element, and they have to announcing people. Yeah, they have to announce
I think they've gone back from the surprise element, honestly. Like the women's one, they only announced 6 women for the match. So you could tell, okay, there's 20 or 24 spots or 25 spots they had to fill. But the men's one, they've kind of really gotten away from it. Honestly, I understand they're going to probably run another baseball stadium or major one. I think running the stadiums is what's hurting these matches.
Yeah.
Every time
I
people
couldn't
come
tell.
out,
I couldn't tell if it was just like that. If it was in their stadium, if because of the Vince stuff they turned the crowd mics down for
right?
fear of like something.
Some chant, yeah.
There's a chance of that, or if there's just like I heard a lot of people say that and I noticed this too. The music's not like dynamic, like the entrance music isn't necessarily dynamic, and
So you don't know who people are.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what Taylor McLaurin kind of said. The music being so bad makes the whole match not work.
yeah, it's just because you don't have like that pop, right? Though they all popped for Jordan Grace, which is so like weird. So like she got one of
I
the
didn't
women.
expect that. I was like, bro, y'all know who she is.
like it was kind of weird. But yeah, like the relying on that element of it, I think for the women's match, I think there was other issues with the men's match. Kind of hurt it. Just somebody that hasn't watched WWE like in years watching it, just we continually hear like how much better the women are used in WWE, but that was definitely like clear. You might be putting these people on TV, but it's not quality time because so many of these people were getting like reactions to the point that when Jade came out of all people, she got like one of the like she didn't just come out and like get the pop and here she is. She was one of the very few people that actually came off as like a superstar. I'm really shocked she doesn't have the three.
But in defense, I mean, she's come into WWE and they put her on a pedestal already. Like, what a major star! What a major acquisition this is. Unlike, here's anyone that on the roster that came out, like Liv Morgan was 30 and it was like, okay. I didn't even remember she was hurt. Like,
right. She wasn't hurt. She was, she was hurt. And then she had the drug bust. And then she had the drug bust. But, and people said, like, I've heard people that were there, oddly enough, they were like, people were expecting Sasha and she wasn't there. But I blame that on WWE themselves because they should have let it be known that she wasn't going to be there in a way that they could without like disappointing fans. Like maybe she's coming, but she's not going to be here, type of thing. And there were two people that I know that were there, that were in the crowd. And they said, oddly enough, people that have no idea who she is were wondering if Julia was going to show up. So that's somebody that like, none of these people, if she walks out, they're not
none of them actually know who she is.
Like, I think they would react to her because her look is like so great, but I don't think that they know who she is. But that was something that like dawned on me. It was just like a lot of people there, which is always the problem with the women's match. I did think the women's match was at least structured better. I thought that, so I knew the spoilers, so I'm curious how you thought about this. The heavy-handedness when it came to Nia Jax and her like throwing people out and then being like, oh, she's so dominant and so this and so that. I knew what was going to happen. So I was like, okay, so this is setting up Jade. When you were watching it, did you notice it or was it just like, what's going on? Or
I mean, you kind of noticed, but you also knew they were kind of trying to make Nia come across anyway as a big monster threat, especially coming out somewhat late in the Rumble match where it's like, oh, she's got a big chance to win this match. But I mean, I like you liked the women's one a little bit better because they had the surprise elements that make the match work, but they were, I thought it was structured better. They had a storyline there with Bayley coming in at 3 and wanting to.
No, I'm tired of that storyline. I'm tired of that storyline.
For sure. For sure. But they had a storyline. They had an element to it. I like the build up to the Rumble itself. I did like for the men's Rumble. I was like, I like a Rumble where you have a lot of contenders and you're not 100% sure who's going to win. I mean, unfortunately, this Rumble ended up ruining their WrestleMania, but that's another discussion down the line here. But yeah, it just didn't like. I also think doing 2 Rumbles kills these crowds. Those are 2-hour matches. That you've just all the excitement of like, oh, surprise and whatever in one, and then you have to wait, a couple hours for the same thing. I'm going to do this again, and then they don't deliver on the men's side always.
Yeah, right. And it's just and I think like watching the women's, it was noticeable to me that Jordan Grace came out and was like looked and acted more of a star. And I like Jordan Grace, but I would have never put Jordan Grace on that level of her coming out, looking and acting like the more than like 80% of the women that were on here. It was like, and part of that I'm sure is, they let her shine a little bit, but it wasn't like they let her like super shine. I don't even think she threw anybody out, did she?
But she was in there for like 20 minutes, which is good.
Yeah. And I will say this, she did things while she was in there. My biggest complaint with Jade was she went in, she kind of eliminated, and then they like did the thing, and then she was like gone. It felt like forever before you got to like the end part. And I was watching it going, this is the thing that worries me about Jade with her being in WWE, because I don't think anyone's going to say that she's not limited when it comes to like in ring, but she is very much like female Goldberg. Like it has all of those things that Goldberg had. Has the look, like you're like, who is this person? Has the attitude, has all of those things, and like Goldberg, maybe not the best in the ring, but you can book around that. Like you don't have to do that. And I felt like they came in, she's limited. Okay, like lay there on the mat for like 30 minutes and not do anything. And I'm like, that's not a great way to use her. She should be like eliminating a lot of people, not just, we eliminated Nia Jax, who eliminated all these people. And I'm like, why didn't you just have her come out early?
I used to get on Tony Khan about this, Josh. I'm like, she's Goldberg. Just let her be Goldberg. Let her never sell.
Right.
All that stuff, man. Absolutely.
Right. And this is when she was in there with like Becky, and she was in there with Bianca. Just the difference. I'm shocked because they pushed her as like such a star that she didn't debut with a 3D graphic. That shocked me. I would have thought that she would have been one of the ones, okay, we're giving you a 3D graphic because that's the, nod to the fans of this is a tippy top. Right. Yeah, this is a big deal. I was kind of shocked about that. But yeah, I thought the women's match, I didn't think it was great. I thought it was okay. But it was, or I would say pretty okay. But it went on forever. There was stuff in it, but it was just kind of there for a large portion of it. So
I think they just miscued the time with the big moments of like big people.
Yeah,
like Jordan Grace came in at like 5.
The way they had it set up too. I heard people say that too. That the way that like people couldn't like tell like who was coming out because of the way the it wasn't even a ramp. It was that snaky thing.
Yeah, that they do for the stadiums now.
Yeah, and it was like, what? I don't like that at all. That's just comes off.
I don't mind that, but maybe it's just how Tropicana Field's set up, which we always hear is like the worst stadium in baseball. Maybe it's the worst stadium.
Well, did you see the seats that were facing?
Yeah, so if you're on the floor instead of looking at the ring, you had to like shift your body to look at the ring.
Like,
I mean,
that's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, whatever. Like I like the men's rumble to an extent, but it didn't feel as big as it should have with the amount of contenders they actually built up for that match.
But how much of that was because of that stupid 4-way?
I would agree with you, but I didn't see the 4-way. But it's the problem I have with. I mean, they had 4 matches on the show, and 2 of them were rumbles, which I didn't like. But like. I can't.
Yeah, like you had. Okay, so beyond how the match was, you had AJ Styles, you had Randy Orton, and you had LA Knight in that match. Yeah, that's 3 people that you needed in the Rumble. Looking back on it, you needed those 3 people and maybe
for sure Orton. Knight. For sure, Orton you needed in there.
Right, you needed that match, and you didn't have it. And on top of that, I mean, and that match wasn't bad. It was very WWE.
Yes, it was, Josh. Don't do that.
Well, no. It was tropey. It was the thing, and so it was boring because it was tropey.
It's just a match where the result's going to happen because
we're still 2 months away from the 4-way I've ever seen in my life. So slow.
Yeah, it was slow. And
everything was so telegraphed. Oh my God! If Solo Sikoa jumps a rail one more time with a hoodie on, I swear to God, how many times are you going to do this? How many times are you going to do this, man?
But yeah.
Man, it was so boring.
So that was like now the Owens match was, I thought, good.
I saw that. I mean, Logan Paul is a great asset to this.
Yeah, company. like it was good, but I mean, as hurt as Owens was, it wasn't like as great as everyone had hoped to. But it was good. But I mean, and I'm not trying to like compare, but just this is the thing, and I'll talk about this later too. that it would have been like that match, which was was like by far the best match on this, was like would be maybe the fourth best that was on that night's Collision, which nobody watched, but was like the fourth match on like that. You can't do that on a pay-per-view. I don't think. I think especially when End of the World, or what was it, right?
End of the world, World's End.
World's End was, as far as an AEW pay-per-view was not good. Was not good at all. It blew this away. Blew this away.
It wasn't good, but it had 3 great matches on it. Honestly.
Yeah. So it's just like, but yeah, I thought this was good. I really liked it. I don't think I had seen a Logan Paul match. So
really,
like everybody else, he's good.
Man. He's fantastic.
You gotta go back and watch that Roman match, man. Like,
dude,
oh my God, bro.
This is a huge acquisition for WWE. I mean, this is an actual legit like celebrity in today's day and age
and he's fucking amazing.
Serious.
Like on top of that,
trains with like Shawn Michaels, gets it, and every match he gets the heel cadence. I can't believe this company brought him in as a babyface first. Like, what are you thinking? This is made as a natural heel, and he just gets the cadence as well. His promos are incredible. He's so athletic, and he only needs to work like the 4 main pay-per-views a year, and I'm fine with him. Like,
yeah. It was I was like, everybody had said that, so I was expecting like that match. I had a very high bar for because I was like, okay, this should be, if everyone what they say about Logan Paul is right, this should be great. And it wasn't great, but I don't think it was.
I don't blame that on Logan Paul. I blame that on Kevin Owens working that match with a broken ankle.
And whatever's wrong with his arm. Like so I'm not like I completely get that. I think for that it was perfectly fine. But like you said, then you go to the men's, and man, that men's rumble was not
slow.
Good.
Slow. So slow.
Like if you know, like here's the thing, if you don't have the horses to put on like a star-studded Royal Rumble, just speed through those entrances, right? Just speed through the match. It's going to be a long match anyways, and would make it so much better because you can just have people getting thrown out all the time, somebody coming in, and
that Rumble could have used like Gunther at like 1 and do like the Diesel spot and just run through people for like up until like 15 or 20 or something like that. Right. Could have used that. You know what I felt bad for? Ricochet. He came in after Punk, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're now in this match when you had no chance at 28, like, no chance at all." Even poor Sami Zayn, who was coming back from like an injury, should have got a bigger pop, and it was like, "Oh, you're here? Okay, cool."
Okay, yeah, like no one believed. That's why I said that they needed those guys they needed more of the guys from the 4-way in this match, because even if you were thinking, okay, maybe Orton. People will get behind AJ either good or bad, and people are into LA Knight. So you would have those people, and people would at least be excited because that's the thing with the Rumble. You have got to like get them excited. You got to kind of plateau, and then get them excited again, then plateau. But I mean, as other people have said, they don't have Pat Patterson to come in and save them with the Rumbles anymore. Like they got to find somebody that can actually book them. So,
I mean, and the biggest story coming out of it now is they lose CM Punk for 9 months at least now with another torn tricep, and he was supposed to be in a major match at WrestleMania, with Seth Rollins. So that really hurts their card because Seth as well as himself kind of hurt, but looks like he may have enough mileage to make it to WrestleMania. But you bring in Punk. This is the biggest star in the business. I don't care what anyone wants to say. Biggest name in professional wrestling is CM Punk, and he's on the shelf after really wrestling one match on television, and that was this match.
Yes. Like
that's
so if you look in this,
they're going through it with the injuries right now, right?
What did I say? What did I say? Oh yeah, is he made of glass? Because it's not like this is the first time. Like going back.
Since beating Jon Moxley for the AEW title, he broke his foot.
Right.
He tore his tricep, and then that was the same night as the brawl out.
Right.
So he was out 9 months, probably a little more because of that investigation, and then came
and collision, and
then fired for that, and then first match back, torn tricep again. So, I mean, he's also 40 something years old now.
Well, I thought this.
45.
I thought this
45. He's
Brawl
actually 45. I did not know that.
Yeah.
at Brawl Out because I was trying to because we hindsight now is more, but at the time everyone was trying to figure out why did he freak the fuck out? Like there had to be more to this. I mean, he's Punk, but he's never done this before. And one of the things I thought was, he knew he was hurt. He knew he had torn his tricep already. He just came back from an injury. He came back from an injury before that. And so I was thinking maybe he's thinking, I can't hang with these guys. I can't be what I need to be, in this company to an extent.
And I'm mad. I'm frustrated.
Yeah. And
I think it just goes to the fact he's just had such in-ring inactivity because of the injuries, because of an investigation in his other company. His body's just on and then off. Like your body,
and he's not a great athlete. I mean, that's the other thing. He's not like a world-class athlete either.
And he was away from the business for so long to begin with, before even going to AEW, and did a couple years of MMA training, which that's extra hard on your body as much as professional wrestling is. And now that age is starting to become a factor right now. Not everyone's a Randy Couture where they can perform their best at closer to
Dan
50.
or Dan Severn or that type of just freak or Bobby Lashley or Brock Lesnar, who are those
now, Bob Backlund for that matter.
Yeah, or Bob Backlund, Jerry Lawler. I mean,
Minoru Suzuki.
Any of those type of guys. So,
but he's also a guy that is obviously paid much in the big spots. He wants to go out there and exceed and deliver, matches that he was doing, 10, 15 years ago. But I just don't think I think the point his body is made of glass. I don't think it may have the right terminology, but his body, I think, is starting to break down. And I think he's maybe going to have to come to the realization of that. But that then leads to the point, what are you going to do with this guy? Because he's so important to WWE. Like, you have to keep this guy on your roster. I don't think he'd ever go back to AEW or if he'd be wanted there, but you have to find a way to utilize him because he's great for what TKO is looking for, selling advertisements, television deals. He's fantastic as a media entity, and he's so important to the business. But what are you going to do with him? It just sucks now. He's not going to be able to be in the ring for now 9 months, maybe more, because who knows what.
And then on top of that, you've got, they did the angle with McIntyre. There's no guarantee McIntyre is going to be in the company when he comes back because he still hasn't signed. So
I think right now, the way they're treating Drew, I think Drew finds a way to sign. I think
I would think so too, but I
think Drew stays.
I think he's probably like telling them, "Hey, I'm probably going to sign, but I'm not going to tell you anything because I'm gonna weigh my options," which is what he should do without question, just to see. But I would agree with you. But it was a weird thing for sure. But it's also WWE, and it's even with Triple H, they could just be like, who cares?
But if Drew's in charge of his social media this week, he's been amazing. Like he has been fantastic. And with this injury to Punk, it does open up a major spot at WrestleMania. And if anyone deserves a major spot at a WrestleMania,
it's him.
It's Drew McIntyre. This guy won the title in front of 0 people during the pandemic, which I feel so bad for him.
I'm somebody who didn't think he was the right guy at that time, because he was not this guy he is now by far. Like he's so much.
I think it's hard to say just because of the pandemic. Because when he won the Rumble, like the reaction he got was incredible, and then the pandemic happened and killed all the momentum that he could have had from a fan perspective. In that, I think the pandemic cancels out a lot of those thoughts. Yeah. But I think he deserves this opportunity if he's gonna. I think he has to wrestle Seth for the title on one of the nights to close out. And I think the way he's going, you can build him up.
And he should win.
Serious hater. He should win because we don't know the status of Seth's health too, because that's an MCL injury.
Right.
So I mean, this card is changing by the moment for WrestleMania, which is I don't think they ever expected that, because these plans are always like so locked tight, and they get very well.
And just so people who watch this know, the thought now is, Brock won't work Mania. He'll work like Saudi or something something that they're actually going to get paid.
I don't think we see Brock for
no,
this
no,
year.
Rock, not Brock.
Oh, Rock, yes.
Rock. Yeah.
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 Rock, because Rock and Roman, they don't need a title for that. That's going to sell out anything. There's some people
I don't know. Okay. This was because Martine brought this up. He brought up Hogan before. I was so shocked at how much he was on that pay-per-view. I was like,
Hogan,
what?
yes.
I was like, what is going on? And it makes me, it worries me that they're going to be dumb and they're going to be like, no, Roman has to beat Hogan's record, right? Because he's never going to beat he's never going to.
Bruno, no.
We're not. And they don't even really talk about Bruno's record anyways, because that's pre-Vince and all of that stuff, but, so I wonder, are they going to be like, nope, we're waiting until he beats Hogan's record, which would be so dumb. So, because I could not believe when I was at work, because I was at work the night that happened, and I could not believe how just not even, they weren't even pissed off, they were just disappointed that Cody lost, and I was like, this is maybe not the best thing.
I think because of this scandal that with Vince, I think Cody wins the title this year. I think they actually do finish the story, because I don't think you need, like I said, I don't think you need Rock and Roman for a title. No. That can sell anything.
But that's what we all said last year too, is that if you're waiting, if the whole reason why you don't want to beat Roman is because you're waiting for Rock, well, you don't need that match. Doesn't need a title.
No,
he hasn't. Roman hasn't needed this title this whole year. He hasn't needed it. It hasn't fit with the storyline even at all.
It would have been better if he didn't have the title this whole year. Whatever.
Yeah,
I would agree with that for sure. And I agree with all of you. Cody should have won last year, especially the momentum that was behind him, showing, John Huber's children in the front row. And then they're like, oh, Roman won, like with a very 1984 finish in that match. But I think this year they actually finished the story, because I think you want to have some positive out of WWE. You let Cody Rhodes be the face of your company. You let that guy speak. You let him have his charisma. You let him have the belt. You let him do those media appearances all around. He can be that guy that you want to have having the title and say a lot of nice things about WWE and wrestling and answer the hard questions. As we talked about, he proved it at the press conference. He can handle that. He's someone I definitely see them giving the title to this year.
Yeah, I would tell people to maybe stop a little bit, because they were like, well, if something happens to Triple H, he can take over. And I'm like, you need to go back and you need to look at like Cody booking things, maybe not the best. That's not the best thing.
Isn't that how we got Anthony
that boxer? That Ogogo program was horrible.
Yes,
horrific. Where Cody
the whole
saw racism.
Codyverse stuff. Well, most of the Codyverse stuff got really not okay. So yeah, we don't need him doing that. I guess we can finally talk about, which is a massive story, and we haven't even gotten to it, is Okada, because this is huge. This has such ramifications for the wrestling world as a whole. Leaving New Japan, his contract will be up in about an hour.
He is working a couple matches.
It's up now. It's been up in Japan for like 12 hours.
Yeah. So this is a story, because you got the guy in Japan leaving Japan. There's really nobody close. Well, I shouldn't say that.
I'd say Tanahashi, but he's now president of New Japan, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
the only person I would say draws even remotely like Okada is Naito, and I'd still say Naito is behind.
Yeah,
honestly.
So this is not just a huge loss for, because he's going to either AEW or WWE. We know that, and if you don't understand the reasons of why, it would seem that he understands his value. There's nowhere in Japan he's going to be able to get that kind of money. The yen is not good right now. The economy in Japan is
economy in the world sucks. First of all,
yes, but in Japan it's not good at all. They go look up negative inflation, folks. It's not a good thing. Negative inflation. It sounds like it might be a good thing. It's not a good thing. So I would say that he's like, hey, if I got to go to the U.S. to make the money that I feel like, that's what I'm going to go do. And so, but that leaves a massive hole in Japanese wrestling because he's not going to be there. And that's, and Japanese wrestling after the pandemic has not been strong. It's been, the pandemic decimated wrestling in Japan. I don't think people realize just how bad it kind of did that, because you have New Japan, but you had, after New Japan, you had like Dragon Gate. Dragon Gate is a shadow of what it once was. We talked last time about All Japan kind of up on the rise, but it's not like great. I mean, they'd still be roughly the same sizes as TNA here. So, what does that tell you? And that's would be like the number 2 or number 3. You have Big Japan, all that. Like, you've got pretty much how it used to be here, where you have WWE or you have WWE and everybody else. You basically have New Japan and everybody else, and they're going to lose, or they have lost their massive stars. So
they've also lost Will Ospreay because he's now signed with AEW. Like, they've lost a lot of bodies and names.
Yes.
For a company that you can tell is in a real transition phase, which they're trying some new bodies and things like that, which some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. But you're losing, like, if you're a hockey fan, a Wayne Gretzky basically on your team, or a Mark Messier, or you're losing a Tom Brady basically. And it's going to be interesting where he goes, because to me, I think everyone's thinking AEW, and it makes some sense. He's been on their programming, but it would not shock me if he went to WWE because of the amount of Japanese talent that they have on there. I mean, they're starting to do something with Nakamura as well. And their TV partner, Abima in Japan, is like really pushing WWE because they believe the amount of eyes that of the Japanese talent that are on there are helping push. And what better way to get that partner to be very happy than with Okada showing up on, Raw or SmackDown or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and it all depends on, like, what is he going? Is he simply just want the money? Which I think if he simply wants the money, then I would say WWE is probably the place. If he's simply like, hey, I kind of want to keep doing what I'm doing now, but I want the money, then I think that AEW is the place. His agent is the same agent that Will Ospreay had. That negotiated. Yep. Who has ties with AEW? Like, and I saw people. I was watching a Sean Ross Sapp thing, and he was talking, and him and Jimmy Van were talking about the fact that people were all confused because there's all this miscommunication about information about Okada. And I'm kind of like, well, it depends on where you're getting your information from, because it's pretty clear if you listen to everybody that no one really knows what he's going to do, that both sides will both tell you at the same time, yeah, he's coming, no, he's not coming. So I think it really depends on what he wants and what he wants to do. And it's not like he doesn't have a lot of money. His wife also has a lot of money. I don't think people realize that. So it'll be interesting to see. But I will say this. I think me and Markeem will probably talk about this. The reaction from the Japanese fans to Tony Khan, if he signs him, I think is very short-sighted, because it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter which one he signs with because he leaves either way. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if he signs with AEW, we know that he'll be able to come back if he wants to. It's all if he wants to. If he doesn't really want to come back, if he's like, I don't care about wrestling in Japan except maybe once or twice a year, then you can go to WWE, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to wrestle in Japan once or twice a year. So I think that's kind of where a lot of this misinformation is coming from, because people don't understand that it's not a complex story. It's just like there's not a lot of moving parts, and it's really just kind of up to him and what he wants to do. It's like, I would put it this way, it's like it used to be with Brock, where is Brock coming back to WWE or is he not coming back to WWE? And it just depends on, like, what, this year I want to go hunting all year round, and this year I don't want to go. I want to make some money. It's that type of thing.
Is Okada like Otani, where he's just going gonna like, hey, let's be quiet about things. Don't leak information, or like it looked like he was gonna. All this media reporting he was signing with the Blue Jays, and everyone here was like, oh my god, we're getting a Ohtani, and it's like, no, he's signing with the team we all thought he was signing with the Dodgers, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
This
probably.
is
I mean,
undoubtedly.
I would imagine that's probably.
This is awful. Like this is off. Like I've seen people that go, I'm excited he's going to AEW or W, wherever. I'm not involved in your stupid war, people. I want pro wrestling to be in a good spot. Him leaving Japan is just
it's
bad
horrible
all the way around.
It's a bad. I didn't want what I said. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. My point is that him going to AEW is the better of the two options if you're a fan of Japan. If he plans on wrestling, having like the Mox or the Bryan Danielson, or whatever Ospreay looks like he's going to do with New Japan throughout the year, where he's not going to be there all the time. He may only wrestle like 3 or 4 times a year there, but at least he's there. Where if it's WWE, you're talking he's showing up 2 times a year for house shows. That's what's happening. Which would you rather have on that for it? You're losing him either way. It's horrible. It's bad. It just shows what state Japanese wrestling is. For people that don't understand this, if you go back to like the 80s, the reason why so much of the top U.S. talent would, like, even Vince couldn't sign them because they would go to Japan, was because the dollar was so weak against the yen that it was better business-wise just to go to Japan. And it was, you did your tour and you were off, and it wasn't like the crazy road schedule that it was here in the U.S. It's very similar to that. And it's just the reverse of that. And we haven't ever seen that before. Even in the 90s, the same thing happened where the dollar was weak against the yen, and it was the same thing. You had the Steiners, the Road Warriors, even Vader, Hogan. You
Vader.
You had these people, and it was worth more money to them to go to Japan. And now you're seeing the opposite, and it's not. But the problem is you don't have the star power that the U.S. had at either of those times, except for the early mid 90s when
I don't think you have that much star power in the U.S. and I think just the business.
No. I'm saying that like early mid 90s, 80s, you had a lot more U.S. star power, so
yes,
those top guys could go to Japan, and it wasn't a big deal. Now, it would be the same thing. This would be like Roman Reigns saying, I'm uprooting my family.
I'm moving to Japan.
We're moving exactly to Japan, or we're moving to New Zealand or somewhere, and I'm just going to work New Japan. It would be the same exact thing. Or if Cody did that, or Cody was like, you know what, we're going to go move to Australia, and I'm just going to work New Japan all the time. It would be that type of thing. I don't think people kind of get that. So,
like, I'm going to Revolution, and I don't want to see Okada. This is going to make me sad. Like, I don't want to see him. I'm not happy he might be there. I don't, no, man, this is all bad.
Yeah,
it's bad for sure because the Japanese scene just seems like empty. But watching the limited amount of New Japan I saw, I was like, this guy Okada, he's just been there, done that. Like he doesn't.
Oh yeah, well, and that's part of it. You want to see.
He's been there. He doesn't need to be here anymore. He's done everything,
and that's
part
fine,
of that.
But in another era, he would just go to another Japanese company. That's the problem, man. That's the problem.
Well, and also when you've got the whole Japanese mindset of you don't have a lot of people in Japan jumping promotions like they should. Like I feel like they should. Like there needs to be a little bit more aggression on New Japan's side of going after top guys and other promotions, signing them, using them correctly. Not being the they're not our guys.
There will be now though, Josh. Like
now, they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to,
and that's not good, man. Because the other places don't have that many guys.
Right.
Like imagine right now. Imagine right now. Nakajima leaves All Japan. What does that do to that main event? What does that do? Hip Hop Kakuta or Daga leave Dragon Gate. What does that do to them? You know what I mean? Like it's all bad, bro. It's all bad.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that
he's not Hip Hop Kakuta anymore. By the way, he hasn't been for years. But you got
for New Japan, that's what they have to do. And you're right. And then it starts this effect, and it's it speaks more to where Japanese wrestling is and where like the state of Japanese wrestling is. So
Yeah, it's
there is
I
that too.
think the combat scene in general in Japan's not that great
Well,
right
then,
now.
and well, I mean, again, the economy isn't good. So
Yes,
so
I mean the pandemic hit that country really hard, and they're still really trying to
right,
overcome that. And
right.
yeah, it's just not a grand thing.
Also, I gotta be a jerk before I get out of here. I'm not in a mood to see these WWE fans act like Okada's the greatest wrestler in the world when we told y'all that for years and years, and all y'all did was call him overrated. But whatever, man.
Well,
Whatever,
man.
man.
That's just the landscape of
Yes,
fandom,
unfortunately.
which is out here. But we've known that for like that for like 15 years though. Whether it's now AEW or TNA against WWE,
Right.
there's fans of that, whatever. But it'll be interesting to see where Okada goes. I honestly think he's going to WWE. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to AEW either, but I feel like it's kind of the same situation. Like, is he going to feel special?
Well,
To me, AEW has too many guys. Like any major signing they have, they fall. Yeah, they just fall.
How would we book Okada's debut in AEW if he went?
Yeah,
I don't know.
At least WWE would make him feel special, and they would with this Netflix deal. There'd be like a special live event in Japan, like his return. That'd be a big deal.
Oh, now if he went to the WWE, the first thing I'm doing is having him face off with Roman Reigns. That's literally the first thing I'm doing. Like I'm not maybe the guy. I'm getting.
If
right
Cody doesn't win the title, which I don't think will happen, that would probably be the guy maybe to take the title off him.
Yeah.
But
I'm getting right to that. Like I'm not wasting any time. First thing will happen. Roman will be in the ring, and you'll hear a coin drop. Not wasting any time.
Because you got to remember this international. I mean, I guess other than Abima, but like Japan eventually may follow suit with Netflix and these other countries. It may just be all Netflix for WWE by like 2027. Like that's a crazy thought to think about. You are watching.
I mean, that's what Universal should have done, and they didn't. So,
yes, but Peacock apparently is terrible.
Yes, it is terrible. You trust me. It's not good. I hate. There's like 4 things that I watch on there because I don't watch WWE, but there's 4 other like shows I watch on there, and it's horrible. It's horrible to navigate, horrible to fast forwards. It's just not a good app at all.
Josh must watch Poker Face. You watch Poker Face, don't you, Josh?
I watch Poker Face. I watch I watch the new Quantum Leap. What's that watch? There's other stuff I watch on that too, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens with him. I mean, as we said, his contract is up. I know he's apparently working some matches for New Japan without a contract to just, I guess, finish up nicely. And then
the last match is with Tanahashi.
Oh wow! I mean that's very fitting at least. But that's the end of an era there for New Japan. How they kind of missed that mark, really.
I think something will happen though. I think that they'll use this time to try and get someone over. Like he'll have the match, and I think someone will jump him. Honestly,
or do we get a surprise match with what's his name from TMDK?
Who, Saber?
Not Saber. The young
boy. Kosei Fujita?
Yeah.
Kosei Fujita. That would be funny. That'd be cool though. It
would be good. I mean,
yeah, that would be cool.
You'd
make him instantly.
Yeah, I mean, but before you leave, Markeem, I wanted to ask because so I guess like 2 weeks ago, so I can't remember which site released what indies should you be watching, right? What US indies should you be watching? List was horrible. List included stuff like TNA, MLW.
Yeah, not
MLW.
An
what?
That is not an indie TNA. That is not an indie.
MLW. I think WoW was on the list. And then like some just like random stuff. But my point was not like because to me there's not that many great indies left. But to Markeem, how would you describe the state of the indies in the United States now?
All right, so I won't be as as hard as some people are, but I will say that we are at a point where they got to stop relying on Tony Khan just loaning them guys so they
Yes.
can pack houses instead of they exactly. Sean Cedar said it best. The answer is none. But they now is the time where you take guys like the Adam Priest or the guys in Georgia, like all those guys in Georgia, the workhorsemen, guys like that, because Tony Khan will use them. And then you make those dudes like the biggest names on the indies. Stop relying on Tony Khan to send you a Orange Cassidy, to send you a Swerve Strickland, to send you all these guys that are on TV every week to pack shows. And once they do that, we might be okay. Because I think the Northwest has a lot of talented guys like in Defy and all that whole area. But the problem is that when they book those shows, the main event is like Swerve Strickland versus blank. And I'm like, and you know, Swerve can't lose. So why even do this? You know, it's yeah, man. Stop focusing on those guys and build some new guys because there is talent, but you use them the same way. Use them the way AEW does. AEW.
You think part of the problem with the indies is that, and I'm not picking on them. It's just I think I wonder about this is the fact that GCW is so horribly booked, and they don't use talent well, and they don't use the right talent that they should, because their core group of talent just isn't very good. You think that has a lot to do with it? Because you're not getting anybody like that you could like even if you try to do super indie, who would you even use, right? You type of thing. Do you kind of agree with that? Because I've been thinking about that for a while.
GCW is the closest thing we have to one, but like you said, it's like because back in the day we would have like PWG and Ring of Honor that kind of set the standard for like what everyone else was doing. Now everyone is trying to do what GCW does, and GCW itself isn't even that great. So that's the problem, you know.
Right, and I
agree with that.
And like LV said, you've got West Coast Pro, which is good, but not enough people are watching West Coast Pro.
But they don't even run as consistently as they used to. Like they don't. Yeah.
I mean, the next two shows they're gonna have are probably gonna be massive.
Well, they're supposed to announce a location they've always wanted to do, and some spring break major match
Brett Lauderdale's super hype. Yeah.
And like Sean said, freaking WrestleMania weekend looks dire, and that's usually like where you see everything because it's probably going to be a lot of people flown in from Japan. It looks like you're going to get a lot of luchadors are probably going to be brought in. And then you're like high profile people, and there's not going to be like that breakout guy that you always like hoped for. And so I think it just makes the indies just not very.
And none of these people are gonna lose. It's almost like the modern indies are like mid 2000s TNA, where they just bring in these outsiders just to beat their guys over and over. Like that does nothing for anyone.
Yeah,
nothing at all.
That's a good point. And then the next thing, just so we can kind of wrap this up a little bit. I don't know, Jason, if you've seen this, but the Will Ospreay match in TNA
with Josh Alexander.
That was like legitimately the best TNA match in forever. I mean,
history. I don't know.
The greatest match in TNA history? Question.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
So
yeah, I think Dave went crazy, but
he gave it 5 stars, I believe.
He gave it 5.5.
I don't care.
Okay, Dave. No, this 5 and this 7. Like Dave, that's what ruined your credibility. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a great match, and it's a major talent like Ospreay getting to work with probably like the best talent signed to a promotion right now that's not getting talked about a lot, and then Josh Alexander, he's TNA Sting, as my buddy JD would say. Like he is TNA Sting, workhorse, amazing performer, amazing match. I mean, credit to TNA for at least putting that match out there. because their product is solid right now. Even though rebranding, logic I don't like.
You know,
but,
Will wanted to lose. Like Will.
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to
he wanted to get
absolutely.
this guy over and build some name and stuff like that. But they put this match out there. The product's been great. Go check this out.
It's an amazing, like it's the probably up until Collision and that cage match, it was definitely like best match of the year. And now that match,
I mean, we're 1 month in, but still.
Yeah, I know. You know.
Jeff, I got something I gotta show you later. I don't know about that.
Okay,
it's up there. It's up there. But yeah. What I want, my favorite part of the whole thing, even after the match, was Scott D'Amore coming out there and cutting that promo. And I'm like, yes, this is what you need to do, sir. This is what
doing the Paul Heyman promo.
Yes, man. Yeah, I was like, let's go. That's right, TNA. Shit, let's do it.
My God,
be
Mark
that
seems
guy,
like it's
man.
2005 all over again. Like, yes, the alternative.
Exactly. But
hey, at least it's not people on Twitter saying that GCW is the new ECW, and I just every time someone says that,
we don't have time.
Fries.
We don't have time.
We don't have time.
We're almost at 2 hours.
Shit, man. I hate that shit, man.
Almost 2 hours. I will agree with LV right here. Scott does get off the TV a little bit. From what I've seen. I watched the pay-per-view, which was
that promo was awesome though.
Oh, for sure. Once in a while, maybe, but not every damn show.
Yeah, like the promo at the pay-per-view was was a little eh. The promo after this match, it was better. It was what it needed to be, because it was definitely like, hey, whatever. Yeah, and then we won't even get into the TNA number 2 crap. That's
an episode, but a lot of stuff's happened, and I'm sorry, TNA. Once again, your rebrand amazing, I guess. I don't know. Some people are like, the nostalgia. I'm like, do you know the nostalgia of actually this company was not good? It was actually awful.
It was awful, except for maybe a year and a half. Like, in its existence.
2005 and up to like 2006, it was sweet, and then 2007 happened, and they should have taken the ball and ran with it, and they're like, no, it'll just be WWE Light. And that's what it is.
And
And all of you watching this, you watched our videos in 2007. Y'all knew what
exactly
we're talking about.
What was the Destination X? What was the Destination X that Brandon reviewed after we told him not to?
That was 2009, right? Wasn't that 2009?
2009 one?
Awful. Either way.
It was such an awful pay-per-view.
But it's a product.
That was the
product now that's enjoyable, but like
but it has no buzz.
But a terrible television network.
Right. It has no buzz. They for whatever reason keep pushing Moose, and I'm like, this is not the dude that you need to be pushing. You need to be pushing like Josh Alexander. There's other guys. You have to be different. Like, I know there's this mentality of you can't worry about what the other guys are doing. I agree with that to a point, except that like with AEW, I think that they do have to be like, hey, Roman is their top guy. People are getting kind of top. Maybe we need to not have, like with MJF, it was like, hey, maybe we didn't need to have this type of heel champion. Maybe we needed to have like a strong babyface champion instead, because maybe this would work better and be that. Like, to me, that's how you like pay attention to the other companies and just kind of see what the vibe is on them and try to do something different from them. So
do the opposite of what whoever else is doing. Because you want to be different. Absolutely.
But they keep going back to Moose. Someone was like, Josh had the title for like a year. Yeah, but they keep going back to Moose. That's not even better.
Okay, but that's because they started this whole rebrand. They're like, oh, we have this faction. I'm like, apparently there was like no build on TV. They're just like, oh, they're together now. You know what the best signing was? D'Angelo Williams. That's an excellent signing for TNA.
That is a good. That is for them.
That guy had one week of training and had like one of the best celebrity matches ever, when no one was watching TNA in 2017 or Impact or Globe, whatever it was called then. That's an excellent signing by TNA. Give him a good chance. Put him in a big program and go to Charlotte or something like that, where he was a solid running back for the Panthers. That's a great signing. But more of that.
Honestly, I think they should push like someone like Speedball Mike Bailey as like the world champ. Because he's different than anyone else, in the
like
world.
He's the closest thing to like an Osprey or or an Omega that you could do as a champion.
Because it's like, bro, he's the most over guy on the show all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's different from like all these guys. Just make him
he's like legitimately their
he's
biggest
the best
draw,
wrestler
too.
in the company.
And
I
he's
mean,
legitimately
as
their
this comment
biggest draw.
says from Ace King Trade, Ziggler's getting that belt. So another TNA continues. Another XW guy is going to be their champion. I mean, that's,
you know what's funny? It just shows you like how much more like although I've been critical of New Japan, like I know he's not beating Finlay, and he shouldn't. But with TNA, I can't say that. Like I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know. Like he might actually win the title. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, man.
I just want to say, January officially on the East Coast has been over for 25 minutes. What a month this was for professional wrestling. Last week was like a year's worth of news in 1 week. And this is just the start of 2024. And I thought 2023 was going to be the biggest year in the history of professional wrestling. We have 11 more months of insanity to come.
Yeah,
I don't even know what's going to happen. We have a WrestleMania, more details of this Vince scandal. Who knows what's going to happen?
You have a second All In, that's going to be a huge thing. You're going to have whatever, it looks like the rumor is that Forbidden Door this year might be a really big show, and that they're planning on it being a big show and running it in Texas. I mean, that's been the rumor for a while.
Yeah,
and
the rumor is that the Forbidden Door will be a lot of companies, not just like
yes,
one.
but it will feature a lot of like lucha people in Texas, and it'll be
they just signed that deal with CMLL today.
I know, so. and we're getting crazy matches already on Collision.
To me, main event of that show, if they do it, since you signed Will Ospreay versus Mystico, that should be the main.
Oh, that would be
should be the main.
That'd be good.
It probably won't be main event, but it'd be probably high up. I would assume.
Do you?
Will Ospreay's main eventing that show in England?
See, I don't know because I don't know CMLL that well. I don't know what's the most prized mask in CMLL. Do you do like that?
I mean, the most prized mask is Mystico.
It's Mystico.
Is it Mystico?
That
do you do like that versus
that character's been protected forever.
Do you do that versus like Bryan Danielson, hair versus mask?
Ooh, I like that. I like that more.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I like that more.
Something like that. Yeah,
because that seems like something Danielson's wanted to do too, right? Like, have a big match, have like a two-way program in like Mexico, and then at that show, like to go to Arena Mexico, and Danielson can continue to hit his bucket list stuff before he retires, apparently this year. But that's a big.
LV brought up a good point. CMLL is going to do a lot of politicking on that show. That is true.
Well, that's
of course they are. There's lucha, man. And also, doesn't AEW still have a working agreement with AAA?
Technically, yes.
No,
they technically do.
No.
They technically do.
Hi,
but I thought it was TNA.
Pissed at them.
It was TNA.
No, they've got
TNA does. I know now because
TNA has like a real working
they legit signed the contract.
Like a legit. Where the AEW one is like a more of like a handshake deal, I would say, but it's still there. So
agreement's now over.
They're just doing that. They're just doing that until Vikingo is a free agent, so Tony can sign him, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, y'all get on through. We don't care no more.
Go away, go away."
Wow.
Just buying Tony Khan's just buying his time, man. Just waiting for him to be a free agent.
That company needs to have a big year too. Like their houses are just awful, like just terrible looking at on television.
Are you talking about AEW or AAA? Which one are we talking about?
I mean, Triple Mania schedule's announced, but that's just going to be insane, and as that usually is like 10 million blade jobs and stuff like that for 3 straight shows.
And you'll get like 1, maybe 2 great matches on it, and it'll be like throughout all 3 shows, and it's like, what are we doing?
AEW's attendance is so weird because the pay-per-views always do great, but the weekly TV.
Well, I think the thing with the attendance is that there were things they needed to change almost 2 years ago. They still haven't changed when it comes to running shows, the way they're doing the tickets. the whole thing. I mean, we could do a whole show just on that, another hour just on that.
Dude, they need a lot of changes. Like Tony Khan, they need to think about.
Well, I mean, they hired the new WWE guy. They just tonight started announcing the shows that it looks like he's the one that kind of booked. So as far as like the venues, so we'll see how it goes. Like that's why when people are like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Well, you just got this new guy. Let's see what he does before we start like really freaking out."
Straight up, what is wrong with running smaller venues until you fix this? Like, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it because it actually looks full, and then you sold tickets.
Yeah, and then the show has more energy. And honestly, like straight up, I would watch on TV a show with like 3,000-4,000 people in a smaller venue going nuts than a big ass basketball stadium where you see empty seats.
Okay, go back. Everybody can pretty much get the network. Go back, watch Classic World Class, and that little venue,
Sportatorium.
Yeah, just absolutely like you think freaking like the ECW arena was crazy. You need to go back and watch like Classic, like Sportatorium, just people going absolutely apeshit crazy, and it comes off like it's the biggest fucking deal in the world. And there's like maybe 5,000 people there. Not,
Shit, that's why
AEW
like Crockett looked amazing. It was in a TV studio with like 20 people.
Right.
It sounded like 300 people were in there.
Yeah.
You
just have to, I to me, if you're being blocked out of the really good and the top arenas, then you have to kind of get, I think, creative, and that means maybe running smaller venues, maybe running more soccer plays, like the smaller soccer stadiums. I think that would be, because I think people hear that and they go, "What do you mean?" Like here in the States, and they think, "Oh wait, but smaller soccer stadiums, you'll max out at 10K."
I do agree. I love when they go to Daly's place, but they do that now once a year because we ran here all the time during the pandemic. It looks bad. I'm like, Daly Place is a cool looking environment, which that company needs to be anything different than WWE.
Right.
Like that's why Daly's Place is like one of my favorite
venues. Or Arthur Ashe when they run Arthur Ashe.
Those outdoor environments.
Right.
Yeah, something that looks different, something that looks like a video game. You're just setting yourself apart from the competition. But yeah, smaller is not always the worst. And this company can run, they can run minor league, professional teams like that are like minor league basketball, hockey. Like you don't have to run where the Celtics play.
Right. As long as what you want smaller venues that have good locations, because that's like here in Kansas City, when they run the place they run here in Kansas City, one of the big issues is that where the money is in Kansas City, that's that little podunk arena that they run is an hour away, on a weekday. That's not the best location.
And
so
nobody's doing that on a Wednesday night. Are you crazy?
Yeah, I mean, they've done good there, but that's an issue. And I know, and I'm sure that just knowing that that's here, you get out even farther west where things are even more spread out, because Kansas City's still pretty centralized, where it's more spread out, and you probably have that. You've got to be like, okay, we're going to run these smaller venues, but it has to be somewhere that's more centralized and that's easier for people to get to. I think if you do that, I think some of this would probably help. So we'll see.
I mean, plus I guess, is AEW in the process of negotiating new media rights deals this year?
Yeah. So the rumor, let me say this again, that I have heard is that the deal is done. The issue is that I don't want to say that it's written, because it's not completely written, because they're literally waiting to find out what happens with the NBA deal. Because if Turner Sports doesn't get the NBA, that changes that changes everything.
AEW is a big priority then,
right?
Instead of being a secondary,
right? And which days they'll run, because then you would probably move.
Then you get your Tuesdays and Thursdays,
yeah. So it changes things. So the deal's done. They're just waiting for the NBA deal to get done so they can truly finalize the deal. There's probably I'm saying this. I haven't heard this. I wouldn't be shocked if they literally have two deals, depending on what the NBA does. They're getting one of the deals. So
Yes.
But at least the WWE deal's done now that we don't have to listen to the freaking like, oh, Turner Sports is going to get Raw.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that wasn't. That wasn't
oh
gonna
man,
happen.
it was fun to talk about, but come on, man, we knew.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this deal's great for AEW. They're going to be the company on television,
Right.
right?
I mean, that's the thing.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, sorry, they'll be the only one really on television starting in 2026 after the Peacock deal in the United States is done.
Yes.
Like, internationally, like here in Canada. In Canada, AEW better become like the hottest freaking product and push Canadians. Do whatever you can because you are the only wrestling that will be seen on television for anyone to find. AEW, this is a golden moment for you come next January.
Well, think if they do this deal in the UK too, where
well, that's what I'm saying. Like the Netflix deal is like hi UK, everything's over there now too. So England, you better run there too as much more than just like, oh, we're gonna sell a major stadium. Like you have a market there. Like TNA, a big, we crapped on them for a lot, but they were able to hit that market in the UK and have a lasting imprint there. Like you hear Will Ospreay say, "I wanted to wrestle in TNA. That was the company I wanted to work."
Yeah, because that was the one that was on TV. Because WWE was behind not just
a
like
paywall,
a cable paywall. They were behind a paywall.
Yeah.
At
so
the time.
hi AEW, you better take this
Right.
TNT sports deal in the UK. Like this is a golden chance for AEW. I mean, that's also a conversation for like a year from now. But this is a massive chance for AEW to really prove how valuable they are. Not only is this a wrestling product, but as like a sports entity.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've gone for 2 hours. That's probably more than enough.
Yeah, I gotta get up in like 5 hours, yo. What the hell are you doing?
We thought you went to sleep
got up before Dynamite, so that's the benefit of working graveyard shift. But we'll be back in 2 years or 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
2 weeks.
I mean, it could be. You don't know with us.
Yeah. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully Chase will be back. Still haven't heard from him, so we don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, I still haven't heard from him either. Checking my phone.
Yeah. But we had a lot to go over. Hopefully we don't have this much to go over next time. But like I said, we'll be back. Thank you guys for watching. I will re-upload this so that more people can see it. And we're out later.
The Skype talkers were coming back, baby. 2024.